I woke up this morning thinking about Network. You know, the 1976 film where the anchorman Howard Beale, who's in the middle of a nervous breakdown, leans out his open window and screams, "I'm mad as hell, and I'm not going to take this anymore." Because honestly, that's a little how I feel after reading through this latest UFO document dump. Not because there's nothing interesting there is, and not because progress hasn't been made. It has. But because after decades on this subject, after Roswell, after Nimitz, after Grush, after congressional testimony, after intelligence officials saying there are things in our skies outperforming anything we possess, and after millions of sightings all over the world across 80 years, we are still somehow handed ambiguity. Now, as I said, I've been in this UFO game for a long time. I wrote my first screenplay about the phenomenon for the Sci Fi Channel, and that was 30 years ago. And I've been talking and researching and writing and reading about this subject ever since. At this point in my life, my reaction is becoming pretty simple. Let's just get this done. After all these years covering it as a journalist first, then dramatizing it as a storyteller, and continuing to interview witnesses, talk to military personnel, intelligence people, insiders, experiencers, I'm just way past the point where blurry dots in the sky move the needle for me. And honestly, I think a huge percentage of the public is there too. Now, look, I am not dismissing this recent release, not at all. And I know there's more coming. And the good news is that the government has institutionalized UFO disclosure in a way we've never seen it before. The stigma barrier does keep collapsing. That's good. Mainstream media treats this seriously now. Congress treats it seriously. Fighter pilots treat it seriously. That matters. That's real progress. But I also don't buy for 1 second that this is the best evidence or imagery that the government possesses. Not anymore. In fact, let me be very clear. I am personally near 100% certain that the United States government possesses extremely high quality imagery and video of these objects. Not shaky infrared blobs, I mean crystal clear. I mean HD, multiple angles, long duration tracking, satellite imagery, gun camera footage, sensor fusion, the works. And I'm also near 90% certain that somewhere inside this labyrinth of black programs and compartmented access projects, there have been crash retrievals, plural. And yes, probably bodies too. I'm not saying I can prove that publicly today because I'm not personally read into any classified programs, and the people who are read in still aren't sharing what they know. I am saying that after decades of following this issue and hearing enough converging testimony from enough credible people, I would be shocked out of my mind if this reality wasn't true. That's where I am now. And maybe part of why I feel that way is because this subject has followed me through my entire adult life, sometimes in the strangest possible ways. On the new podcast, Sound, Light, and Frequency, Brent Friedman and I have talked openly about co-creating Dark Skies in the 1990s, a television series whose core premise was simple but explosive. Can the public handle disclosure? In the pilot episode set during the Cuban Missile Crisis, our lead character, John Loengard, realizes something terrifying. As the world stands on the brink of nuclear war, he suddenly understands that President Kennedy may not know the full truth about the alien presence. Loengard asks the majestic chief, his boss, Captain Frank Bach. He says, President Kennedy doesn't know, does he? And Bach answers, President Kennedy knows what he needs to know. That line, which I put in the script, has haunted me for these 30 years, because in many ways, that still feels like where we are right now. The public knows something, Congress knows something, even presidents seem to know something, but not everything, but not the definitive case. At the time Brent and I wrote that scene, the studio, the network, and most of the viewers considered it to be elevated science fiction, just a good story, well told. And then Brent and I were approached by men who claimed to be from the Office of Naval Intelligence. And one of them, JC, showed up at our Dark Skies premiere party and tried to recruit us into a slow drip disclosure effort. And this wasn't the end of my journey with the subject. Years later, Richard Dolan and I wrote AD After Disclosure, which was really an attempt to think seriously about how disclosure might actually happen, not whether UFOs were real, but what would happen after confirmation of their reality. How would governments react? Markets, religions, science, ordinary people. At the time, gradual disclosure, which was slow acclimation, actually seemed plausible to me, maybe even wise. And then came my years working alongside Ross Coulthart, hearing story after story from insiders, military sources, intelligence figures, whistleblowers. And again, you hear the same underlying message. There is more, much more. So, yes, maybe in 1996, when JC approached us at the Dark Skies party, slow drip disclosure made sense. Maybe when Richard and I wrote AD After Disclosure, gradual acclimation still seemed responsible. Maybe even during the Coulthart years, it felt like society needed time to absorb this. But it's 2026 now, almost a decade since the 2017 New York Times story cracked the subject wide open. And quite obviously, I'm not the young man I was when I began this journey. I've spent decades watching this mystery circle humanity like an approaching storm. I've watched the culture move from ridicule to curiosity to suspicion to near acceptance. The debate is no longer, are UFOs real? The debate now is, what exactly does the government know? Why won't they tell us? And honestly, they know a lot. Enough with the calibrated ambiguity, enough with the breadcrumbs, enough with the blurry dots in the sky. If the truth is as profound as many suspect, then trust the public. Let me go back to that scene in Dark Skies. It ends with Lowengard telling his superior officer, and this is the quote, if you're going to fight for humanity, at least have a little faith in us. I still believe that to this day. Trust humanity. Because at this point, the secrecy itself may be doing more damage than the revelation. I started out this with a movie reference, and I'm going to end with one. Remember Tom Cruise playing Jerry Maguire? And remember what football player Rod Tidwell demands from him? He says, show me the money. Yeah. So, respectfully, to whoever still holds the actual proof, the craft, the bodies, the photos, the videos, at least let us see enough to know that we are not alone, and not by a long shot. Show us the saucers. Thank you.